as I said, that the natural resources directly affect the environment, and environment means the climate, and the climate means if you are living in a good climate, you will have good health. Your sensitivity towards uh, you know your sensitivity towards various environment parameters will be strong enough, right? So I think the most vulnerable are those who have less capacity to cope with change in environment. The current pandemic was a big example of this thing, having the less capacity to cope with change in environment. In this pandemic we found loss of life, extreme loss of life, but then there was indeed a ray of hope when we were talking about immunity. We had government of India promoting, try to increase your immunity. Not only government of India, our mothers also, our grandmothers also, our family was also trying to increase our immunity. We were eating those foods, we were including adding those vegetables, we were adding those herbs, we were drinking those kadhas, which was increasing our you know capacity, which was increasing our immunity to you know counter this virus. Okay, this virus had indeed entered the environment. There were people who were able to survive, and we have a good human life going on. So the most vulnerable are those which are having less capacity. So less capacity is inculcated inside a human being when he is living in a polluted, or what you call a polluted climate or a polluted environment. So maintenance of these natural resources like a good air or a clean air or a good water is important to stay healthy, to counter these changes in the environment. These changes will indeed come, and they will regularly come. Not before this virus, we had all those what you call various type of things going on, some Zika virus, some dengue, and those various things. You can only cope up with them if you have good health, and you will have good health when you are living in a good environment. Many of us might have also observed this also, that like whoever are living in Delhi, we generally have these headaches, and then we have this pain in our bones also, or joints pains also. But move on, many of us take LTCs and move out to travel, go to Andamans or stay in some hilly areas, and generally we find that our headache is gone. At least for the next 6 days we do not find those headaches in our our joint pains are also. Why is there such a drastic change? It's because it's the fresh air. The pollution, the air pollution is affecting us so much that we do not even realize it. We think that we are coming back home, we are happy enough. But no, I have personally observed this change many times. So, who are the most vulnerable when it comes to these changes? These are the children, the women, the senior citizens, the sensitive pregnant women, the disabled and sick people, and the poor people also. These informal settlements. हमारे देश में जितना झुग्गी झोपड़ी है, okay, there are slum dwellers. We find that although we were living in good houses, we could still keep distance from this pandemic. But what about these people living at these jhuggi jhopis? They were not able to do it. So these were the people who were directly affected. These were the people who were in direct contact with these what you call changes in the environment. So when we are talking about these natural resources and talking about the health, we need to consider in our planning that these natural resources are utilized in a way that humanity or humans are not affected much with this. Now, What is the vulnerability of human health, you know, to effect of changes in this nature's resources? You know, who will be the most vulnerable? Many of these points that I've written over here, you might be able to relate with this pandemic that just got over. Those areas which were having highly dense population spread like anything. Yeah. We also find that air pollution in many areas of Delhi is much more dense. There is much more air pollution over there. Let's take an example. When we talk about Delhi's finest area, like the Lutyens area, where all these dignitaries live, the pollution level in those areas is much less, because they have what they have. They have a huge forest coverage. They have good amount of greenery. They do not allow the traffic to stop over there. They do not have huge markets over there. If there is a residential area, it's a residential area. But if we talk about other areas in Delhi, you find very less residential areas which have not converted to commercial. So when we are talking about good colonies, their good colonies are good, but all these colonies have gradually turned into a market. Their outskirts, the outside areas of all these colonies are market itself. And a market means you will have vehicle, you will have public over there. There will be pollution. There will be what you call waste amount being generated. There will be machinery that will be working. There will be generators that will be working. You know, there will be usage of water also. There will be wastage of water also. There will be extreme use of water also. You know, so as you know, highly dense population is one of the important factors also. Then we talk about the low resource of healthcare. India is still struggling with this healthcare factor. Then there is a disaster and emergency response. We are still growing. Then there is over allocation, pollution, inadequate water supplies, which cities like Delhi are indeed affected. And I'm talking about Delhi because we are directly related to this city. We are directly related to this city. And it will be better able, we will be able to better understand about all these parameters and how we should work for this thing, you know, for improvement of our city. Finally, we have to live over here in these cities also. Our kids will be staying in these cities also. So we need to work as humans so that the future generations at least can have good things. Another is the substandard housing and sanitation. Although we might be living in a good area, we might be living in a good colony, but then very close by we'll be having a jhuggi jhopri cluster or areas which do not have good sanitation. We are using CNG piped gas, but those jhuggi jhopri areas are still using that wood. So what's the point of us using a what you call a PNG pipeline at our homes when across 100 meters itself there are people who are burning the wood to cook food, or there are people who are using burning the wood during the winters to keep themselves warm. However, the government might say that photo खींच के भेजो कहीं आग लगी हुई हो, तो whatever they might say, but still people are doing it. There are labors, like when we talk about it, you can easily visit any of these construction sites that are, you know, in Delhi itself. Somewhere if a house is being built, किसी का मकान बन रहा है, कुछ बन रहा है, या कोई bridge बन रहा है, where is that labor staying? That labor is still staying at those substandard housing where they do not have much resources, and that is affecting each and every person. If we are staying in a good home and thinking that we are healthy, sorry, we are not at all healthy till we are, you know, inhaling the polluted air being created by that wood burning. So you need to provide at least basic facilities to each and every person living in a city dwelling. Okay. Then there is low diversity of agricultural cropping system. And this is, diversity of agricultural cropping system. You can vary it a little, but still, in India, at least we'll say we are good at it. Although not much good, but still uh, we are still good at it. Like if you talk to scientists, most of the agriculture scientists that Uttar Pradesh and the Western Uttar Pradesh soil, people should not grow sugarcane, but we find that maximum of these areas they are they are growing sugarcane. You know? So there are many factors which which causes humans to get vulnerable with changes in the natural resources. Then how this, what you call the climate change or this change in natural resources affects us. We have been reading this everywhere, that the extreme weather conditions are changing, the glaciers are melting, there is disturbed rainfall sometimes. Like Delhi itself, we said इस बार बारिश बहुत ज्यादा हुई है, इस बार बारिश कम हुई है, इस बार तो गर्मी बहुत जल्दी आ गई. No? But what exactly is causing it? What exactly is causing it? हम हमेशा दिवाली के आसपास देखते हैं, there is huge pollution going on. But is it only those crackers, or is it some other natural factors also? Yeah? So these weather events, these there is increase in like the storm or the cyclones or the flooding. Then there are what you call extreme heat waves. Extreme heat waves used to be a very common feature in the state of Rajasthan, or sometimes over here in Delhi also, but not very frequent in Delhi. But now, if you see the parameters for the 10 years back, it has become much more frequent in Uttar Pradesh also, as well as in Delhi and surrounding areas. The extreme heat waves, and these heat waves are not confined to like 5 days or 6 days. They are now extended to 15 days. And this extreme heat waves are, causing everything: rapid glacier melting, the floods, reduced water availability. Obviously, these are, everything will be get disturbed once we destroy a natural resources. For example, once we destroy a forest cover of an area, each and everything will be destroyed of that area. Whether it is in terms of water table, whether it is in terms of fresh water. Many like I am from Delhi itself. I have seen many lakes gone. There were many lakes or small ponds that existed in Delhi almost 40 years back. Whether it was North Delhi, whether it was East Delhi, there were huge lakes that existed. But now those lakes or water bodies have been completely taken over. And there are colonies that are sitting over there on top of it. So all we recently, few years back, almost like a decade back, we found that Mithi River case in the case of Mumbai. Similarly, you will find many cities. I have seen this development of the city of Dehradun. Those rivers, those what you call the flowing streams, they've all been covered and houses being built. And there will be one day when, you know the nature will take back all these things, and then we will, again will be suffering. So we are the ones who are disturbing these natural resources ourselves. For a short term, we are happy that we are having good things, but when we talk about the longer terms, once that flow of river areas obstructed, you will have, a huge loss at one. Those green areas, that land, the soil, we have completely destroyed that soil. So gradually we find that there are many factors which change when we disturb or damage the natural resource, the areas, natural, those areas which maintain the climate of a place. This is the mortality rate chart by WHO, and it's almost like uh, almost what you call the 20 years back data. You know, I deliberately took this data to show that how things have changed. You know, if we talk about the Asia, India is still in the orange thing. That is, we are almost at a higher tone, that we are losing life due to climate change. Almost like 4 million to 70 million. 4 to 70, what you call, people are dying per year, okay, due to this change in weather. And change in weather, how is the change in weather occurring? Only because we are not maintaining that weather. For a short term, we are able to, disturb a parameter, but we never come back to, replenish that system. We are building cities, we are building dams, we are building bridges, we are building roads through the forest areas, but we are not bringing it back. Now, let's talk about the influence of change in ecosystem and its effect on health. As I said, that the maintenance of natural resources is very important. And this maintenance of natural resources is directly dependent upon the environment that will be available for humans. And that environment will be directly affecting the health of the humans. So if we are affecting the natural resource, okay, that will affect the environment condition. If we are talking about the environment conditions, then we are talking about the health system, the social conditions, and all that combined to impact our health, whether it is by direct exposure to the things or whether it is by the indirect exposure. Direct exposure is if we are working in those areas like the landmines, I'm talking the landmines, whether it is we are talking about the mines, if we are working on those like coal mines or iron mines or all these places, we are having directly affected, or if it is the indirect exposure, whether it is through the bad quality of food or bad quality of air that we are, exposing ourselves to. So all these things affect our health. The health impact is very important, and it is directly impacting, it is being directly impacted by the change in natural resource. Another is the, as we talked about the change in the natural resource, then natural resource will affect the climate of that area, and that affecting of the climate area means that, all those parameters will automatically change, whether it is the heat waves, the heat temperature around that town or the city, there will be, change, or it is about the if it is a big city and you are changing the what you call the vegetation or the forest area, obviously the big cities will have what you call huge amount of industries as well as vehicles. There will be huge amount of pollution, but then where will be the green sink? If you are developing, if you are using all those vehicles, if you are using all those industries, and we do not have a green sink or the forest sink or the forest area, whom will it affect? It will stay in the city itself, in the air of the city itself, and it will directly affect the humans, the people living in that city. कभी कभी गर्मी ज्यादा बढ़ जाती है जब हम सिटीज अपने घरों में होते हैं कि गर्मी बहुत ज्यादा है, and what exactly is the reason? The reason is this itself. I'll try to show one picture if I have. Let me just have it. Um, yeah, let's talk about, like I was talking about this picture. What exactly? This is a data related to the heat thing that we are talking about right now. What exactly it says? Like this type of scene, the picture that I have shared below, this picture we all must have seen in Delhi. This is a very common feature. If you go to Nehru city, if you go to a place like Nehru place, you can easily see 30 to 40 ACs installed at one place. Okay, so if you calculate how many air conditioners are being used at a time in a building of a Nehru place, okay, in a building of a Nehru place, how much heat are these thousands of units generating at a common time? Think about that heat, and think about a colony which is just across. Like I think there's a colony called Saket, or you have your own college itself, the Ramanujan College. Okay, you have the Deshbandhu College just across how many meters? It's not, I think, half a kilometer from a Nehru place. Okay, so if we talk about the heat being generated by all the air conditions of Nehru place, and then we say that the students or the faculties in Nehru place are not get affected, that is a farce. All this heat, all this heat is indeed affecting the residents or the people living around that area. That heat is affecting your health. Like all these air conditioners also have those gases which are affecting what will, although we are now regularly changing these what you call gases also, and we are developing those what you call newer gases so that it doesn't affect the environment. But there is a catch. Like I was reading before this, like there was the problem with the ozone hole, and then we changed those CFC, the chlorofluorocarbons, in these air conditioners and those refrigerators, and now we are using a different type of gas. Okay, but I was reading about this gas, that this uh, leakage from these gases, leakage from this air conditioner, this gas is heavy enough that it stays just above the city itself, stays in the air of the city itself. When we were talking about CFC, it was going up and affecting the ozone layer. But the newer gases that we are using, it stays in the air itself. So, and that is one concern, and that is one cause of this extreme heat that we find in Delhi. If we talk about all these ministries, I was once in this Nirman Bhavan, I think, yeah, Nirman Bhavan. I was once, like almost 10 years back, I was counting the air conditioned units that were on the one side of Nirman Bhavan. On one side of Nirman Bhavan, there were almost 257, I think, units that I remember. It was 2014. That there was almost 257 units of air conditioner on one side of Nirman Bhavan. So if we talk about the complete Nirman Bhavan, then, so if we say that I live in a very good colony and I'm not being affected, my health is not being affected, then I think we are at a loss. We might be having good things, but gradually some people are in direct contact and suffer immediate health issues. Some people take time to develop those health issues. Okay, so let's get back to this. You know, now this is a very I'll cover them one by one. Okay, this is the direct effect, then there is the indirect effect, then there is the water, and indirect effect is these diseases which are caused by the water and food. Then there is malnutrition, air pollution. Okay, uh, now let's talk about the vector-borne diseases. This graph, vector-borne disease, shows the deaths per million due to the vector-borne diseases. Okay, and this is a very good data, as you see over here. That is the estimated deaths due to the climate change. You know, when we compare ourselves with China, it is still less. Okay, and this is a 20 years back data. Okay, and what was that? Our mortality, we were still higher. So you see, when we talk about developing nations also, so India needs to work a lot. Compare us with the China or compare us with Brazil. They are also, or compare us with Argentina. They are also developing nations. But what are the factors that India is suffering from? We need good legislations. Okay, we need good government intervention. We need, public is aware, public is knowledgeable in India, at least that I would say from my personal experiences. But then, are we working as a community? That community thing in India is missing. So here is a list of some diseases that we saw, that we have seen recently in few, like 10 to 20 years. What all diseases has, increased uh, in this world. Malaria was already there, but if you see the history of malaria, malaria started around this industrial revolution itself. Okay. Then we have those dengue fever, then we have this yellow fever. Okay, so these are some of the vector-borne diseases that are still existing in various nations. Okay, and we are still to overcome these diseases. Even if you go like, if you are going abroad to a country like Argentina, Brazil, you still need, it is mandatory to take a yellow fever shot before you are, given a visa over there. So that means this vector-borne disease like yellow fever is still existing over there. Okay, so what exactly caused this, these diseases? These are caused by malaria. And and how do we find these mosquito breeding? When we have all these water problems, okay, polluted waters, and we have all those जिसे कहा जाता है रुका हुआ पानी, okay, and these are the reasons, these uncontrolled parameters. Government may be trying as much, अपना कूलर साफ करिए वगैरह 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 वगैरह, but when we are talking about a community, when we are talking about a huge city, this is not the solution. You cannot completely, remove mosquitoes from nature. They will exist in one form or the other. They will exist. But what we require is, we require a sustainable model. Sustainable model which can, prevent or which can support human life and save human life in whenever these type of problems arise. Okay, dengue is not a new thing. It existed long back also. Okay, so we need to, overcome all these problems with sustainable development of our cities. This is, another is the malnutrition thing. One is the vector-borne diseases, as I said, that the indirect effect. These are some of the indirect effects, and these effects are created only. These effects are created only when we tinker or damage our natural resource, when we damage our environment. Okay, so malnutrition, the famine thing, the Bengal famine, we all know the famines existing at various places all over the world that occurred. Right now, we as a human race have controlled famines to some levels, but still, when we talk about countries in Africa, some places we indeed find malnutrition as a major issue. So This graph is for those kids who are under 5, and they are affected by all these, the deaths, the diarrhea being one of the reasons, malaria, prenatal, measles. These are major diseases that occur only when we affect, or when we tinker, or when we play or change our natural environment. This I have already explained. Then these are the respiratory health issues. You all know what exactly is. And like this is one ragweed allergen that causes, you know, uh, this is an allergy that is caused. In fact, this allergen is available in, in abundance in a city of Delhi also. And then there are various other plants also, various other flowers also. I am, like, I am been, I took birth in the city of Delhi itself, so I've been brought up in the city itself, and I, since kid, have seen the changes in the vegetation. There were many flowers that have completely vanished from this city, and when you read about those, what you call those flowers in the internet, or you read about their health benefit, you find that they are the ones who were, the mosquitoes stay away from that, what you call, from that plant. I don't have the picture right now, but if you search about there are small pink flowers. Okay. And if this was in huge abundance in this city of Delhi, almost 30 years back, they were in huge abundance, roadside पे भीड़ में लगे रहते. But sorry to say that this city has lost all those vegetation. That city, and these were, natural resistance to mosquitoes. They are natural resistance to mosquitoes. So we, if I see that, in comparison to what is existing now, what is happening now, that we are affected. We have huge abundance of mosquitoes now. Had those plants been around, those herbs been around, we would have been able to control these mosquitoes. We would have less cases of these dengues or malarias. We would have been able to control these diseases. But in our rush to make more roads, in our rush to make huge buildings, in our rush, maybe some other factors also, these things, these plants have gone. I don't find these plants anymore in hedgings around Delhi, on roads around Delhi.